And we're back with Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, like Mother, like Daughter, Part 13. Marcus takes LJ to Maria's new house. It's about an hour outside of the city. And when they pull up, they go to the door, ring the doorbell. Maria comes to the door, and she's surprised to see them there. But she invites them in. Marcus asks if Melissa's there, and Maria lets him know that she's sound asleep. He asks if Jessica's there, and Maria says no. He asks if she has any idea where she might be. She says if Jessica isn't at home, then he would have no idea where she might be. She expected her to come and pick Melissa up hours before and hasn't seen or heard from her. LJ asks Maria if she minds sharing why she moved, and Maria tells her that Jessica said she had been being followed and that someone was sitting outside of Maria's house. She asks who LJ is, and he explains that he's Marcus's wife's best friend. He then asks her if she knows who Marcus's wife is. Marcus is shamed, so he can't make eye contact with either one of them. Maria looks at him, then she looks at LJ and says, "Unfortunately, I was aware that my daughter was involved with another woman's husband. But no, I do not know who she is." LJ says, "Jessica's little sister, Angela." Maria clutches her imaginary pearls and almost falls trying to sit down on the couch. LJ has to help her down so he knows that she's not pretending. Maria truly did not know that her daughter was that diabolical. Maria says, "Jessica found Angela and started an affair with her sister's husband?" Marcus says, I promise, Miss Maria, I had no idea that Angela and Jessica were sisters." Maria says, "I don't understand." LJ asks, "Did you not help your daughter find her sister?" Maria says, "No, I had no idea whatever became of the girls. Whenever I've ever tried to talk to Jessica about her sisters, about finding them and having a relationship with them, she always cuts me off and gets angry. She says she hates them and wants nothing to do with them. So I'm just so confused." LJ, like a good PI, asked, "Well, what made you move to North Carolina and when?"
"I was in and out of mental hospitals and treatment, and Jessica, she was in and out of foster cares. But she managed to continue with her schooling, and by the time she got to high school, we were able to reunite, and she was able to go off to college. She went to South Carolina State, you know." Marcus says, "My sister went to South Carolina State." Maria continued, "So after she found a job in North Carolina, she moved here. When she found out she was pregnant and she had to go on bed rest, she asked me to move here too. But even though she needed my help, she insisted she put me in my own house. At the time, that didn't make any sense. But now I realize that she was trying to keep me away from Marcus. She did not want me to know that he was married. But eventually, I kept pressing and pressing because it was just so odd that you were around so little. And eventually, she admitted that you were married, that you were unhappy and you were leaving your wife, and that you loved her and Melissa, and that you all were going to be a family. And that's when I really started to try to tell her about what happened with me and her father. The very last time I tried to talk to her about it, she said to me she learned from my mistake, and she would never try to get rid of the man. She'd just get rid of the woman and keep the man and everything else."
LJ says, "We're not sure how she found Angela or how she figured out that Angela and Marcus were married, but we believe that she targeted Marcus to get back at Angela." Marcus says, "And I still can't figure out why. But, Miss Maria, Jessica's done some horrible things tonight." LJ then explains to Maria what it is that Jessica has done. Well, at least the parts that they know about. LJ explains that he's a private investigator and that he's had an opportunity to sit down with Miss Cheryl and get her side of the story about what happened all those years ago. He's also had an opportunity to talk with Angela, and he's learned that she didn't even realize that Jessica and Melissa were her sisters until recently. Angela never wanted to talk about her childhood, and Miss Cheryl never wanted to press her. So now Angela's doing the work in therapy to unpack all of the things that she saw, heard, and lived through. Maria cries and says, Angela was such a sweet young girl. She had the biggest heart. She was always so kind. She was always so non-confrontational. So I'm not at all surprised. She rarely, if ever, asked any questions. She always tried to just make no problems. And LJ says it's precisely why she didn't realize that her husband was having an affair. Marcus looks away in shame. LJ says, this isn't even about judgment. Maria says that none of the girls deserve to have her trying to harm their father. And Angela and Stephanie didn't deserve to have her trying to harm their mother. She says that she knows that now, and she wishes that Jessica would have listened to her whenever she tried to explain it to her. Jessica has had the wrong idea about what transpired back then all of these years, and no matter how hard Maria has tried, Jessica just won't listen. She says, Jessica just continues to insist that her sisters had her father's love and she didn't. And that's just not true. And she just believes that they inherited all the family's wealth and she inherited nothing. And that's also not true. I absolutely refused to tell her anything about her part of the inheritance until I could get her to listen to my story about all of the things that I did and the things that her father tried to do to be a good man and a good father and even a good husband. I don't know where Jessica is, and I don't know if I'm even ever going to see her again. I'm very sick, and I don't know how long I'll be here. So I'm going to tell you guys what happened, and hopefully you can get through to her. She then tells them that Angel was not with her and Miss Cheryl at the same time. She and him broke up shortly after they had Jessica. He then met and married Cheryl, and they had Angela. He continued to take care of his daughter Jessica, but Maria could not let it go. She was jealous, she was envious, and she wanted her man back. So one night when he came over to see Jessica, she drugged him, had sex with him, and got pregnant with Melissa. When he found out, he was livid and he didn't want anything to do with her. But she decided that she was going to use the new baby as blackmail. If he didn't do what she wanted him to do, she was going to tell his wife that he was cheating because his back was up against the wall. He did whatever she said and gave her whatever she wanted, but he would not leave Cheryl. She told them all about her running her off the road, showing up at their house, antagonizing and threatening her, and how eventually Cheryl disappeared and made arrangements for the girls to be able to visit their father. Despite the fact that she left town, her and Angel still didn't get back together. He would just come and visit the girls. And when Angela and Steph were in town, he would bring them by so that they could visit with their sisters. One night, Maria got up because she heard crying. She saw Angel sitting out on the porch, crying over Cheryl and praying, asking God to help him. Maria said, I just couldn't believe this man. After all of this time, he's still pining after this woman. And I just went off, and we got into it, and I said some things that I shouldn't have said. He grabbed his girls and went to his parents' house, and I followed him. When I got there, I listened to their conversation from the window, and I heard his parents tell him that it was time that he just left me for good, and he said that he couldn't leave Jessie and Missy. And they said, that's fine. You take those girls and you go to the property in Denver. It's a part of your inheritance, and we'll go ahead and sign it over to you now. But you get far away from that woman. Don't worry, we'll call Cheryl, we'll let her know what's going on, and we'll make arrangements for you to see those girls. And maybe you and Cheryl will even be able to get back together. Maria said, at that part, I was just tired of it all. I didn't even want a man who would cry on my porch about another woman. I just was determined to stop him from taking my girls all the way to Colorado. I knew if he did, I would never see them again. The day before he was supposed to leave town with my girls, I cut the brakes on his car and took all 4 girls over to his parents' house. I figured he would leave my house and go somewhere and the brakes would fail and it would just all be over. But he didn't leave the house all day. And then the next day, I figured that he wouldn't make it to his parents' house. But somehow he made it there. LJ, having been a police officer and an investigator,
knows a little bit about brake tampering. So he explains that when a brake line is cut, the brakes don't instantly fail. The brake pedal actually has to be depressed fully at least 30 times before all of the brake fluid leaks out and the brakes fail. It's likely that Angel drove all the way to his parents' house without even noticing that anything was wrong, and he didn't have any issues at all until well after he picked up the girls and drove out of town. Maria just sobs and cries, and he says, I just have one more question. Did you ever tell Jessica about the house in Denver?